Hey, it's Helen Smith here. Welcome to The Beefing. Today's beef is on Princess Diana versus disgraced BBC reporter Martin Bashir. Let's get into it.
From the briefing team, this is The Beefing.
On the 20th of November in 1995, an interview inside Kensington Palace with the late Princess Diana and BBC reporter Martin Bashir aired and changed everything.
Well, there were three of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded.
The Panorama TV interview was watched by 23 million people in the UK and an estimated 200 million worldwide, and went down in history, as it was the first time a serving royal had spoken so openly about life inside the royal family, revealing revelations about adultery, the Prince of Wales' affair with Camilla, Diana's struggles with bulimia, and her doubts as to whether her husband was fit to be king, who is now, in fact, the king. This interview ultimately led to the end of her marriage with Prince Charles at the time and rocked the monarchy, with many also claiming it led to the death of the princess. And now a new book has just been released, Dianarama, Deception, Entrapment, Cover-Up, The Betrayal of Princess Diana, that re-examines the Panorama interview and unpacks the controversial methods used by Martin Bashir to secure the interview. Now, the book is written by Andy Webb, who was a reporter for the BBC for more than 15 years, and he claims that the cover-up by the BBC after the interview left the vulnerable princess to her fate. Webb telling this to Good Morning America.
Bashir had alleged that Prince Charles was hiring a hit team to have Diana murdered because Prince Charles, it was said by Bashir, was actually engaged in an affair with the nanny who had been hired by the couple to look after young William and Harry.
And Diana believed that?
We know that Diana did believe that. Diana knew for a fact that her phone had been tapped.
Dianarama reveals how Webb faced the BBC's legal team demanding access to highly contested documents relating to the scandal. And the book was also written with the full support from Charles Spencer, Diana's younger brother, also known as Earl Spencer, who was a big part of this beefing. Now, there's so much to unpack in this feud, so today we're just going to focus on the methods Martin Bashir used to get the interview with Princess Diana and why so many people say it resulted in her death. Firstly, though, to give you a bit of background, Diana was known as the People's Princess. She was married to Charles when she was just 20 years old and was the first English woman to marry an heir to the throne for over 300 years. And the pair had two sons, Prince William Arthur Philip Louis and Prince Henry Harry Charles Albert David. And she was a princess of many firsts who became an icon celebrated across the globe, including for helping challenge the misconception that HIV could be transmitted by touch by shaking hands with AIDS patients, and she also highlighted the humanitarian issue of landmines by walking through a cleared minefield. She pretty much redefined what it meant to be a royal. But in 1997, when she was just 36 years old, she tragically died in a car accident in Paris after the vehicle she was riding in was being pursued by paparazzi just 2 years after giving the Panorama TV interview.
Now, we can report that the British Foreign Secretary Robin Cook, speaking in the Philippines, has just confirmed that Diana, Princess of Wales, has died following the car crash at midnight in Paris. The Foreign Secretary said, "I am greatly shocked by this news. Our first thoughts must be with her children and family at this time of immense loss to them."
So how did Martin Bashir, a relatively unknown reporter at the time, manage to get the interview of a lifetime? Well, a 2021 inquiry into his methods of securing the interview found that Bashir used faked documents to gain access to the princess by commissioning phony bank transactions that showed payments coming from News International into the account of Alan Waller, who was a former security guard for Charles Spencer, Diana's brother, who I'll now refer to as Earl Spencer. But pretty much the statements were suggesting that individuals were being paid to survey the princess. And Earl Spencer said during the inquiry that the bank statements were used to groom me so that Bashir could then get to Diana for the interview he was always secretly after. And that Bashir hooked me in. I was duped. He very cleverly came to me on my number one bugbear, the bad behaviour of the press, which is, of course, ironic. And one reason why this method was so effective, according to Earl Spencer, who said in 2022, was that after Princess Diana and King Charles got divorced, Diana was finding that some of her secrets shared with only close friends were appearing in the press, and that she was understandably rattled by this. Looking back, I suspect she was a very early victim of phone hacking by unknown perpetrators, but nobody knew about this criminal practice in 1995, so she was accepting of the outrageous claims that dark forces were at work. This inquiry by former Supreme Court Justice Lord Dyson also found that the internal probe by the BBC and investigation into Bashir in 1996 into what happened was woefully ineffective, and that after the interview, as media interest increased, the BBC covered up what it had learned about how Bashir secured the interview with Diana, and that the broadcaster fell short of the high standards of integrity and transparency, which are its hallmarks. And after the 2021 inquiry, Prince William gave a powerful video statement addressing the Panorama interview.
It brings indescribable sadness to know that the BBC's failures contributed significantly to her fear, paranoia, and isolation that I remember from those final years with her.
And Prince Harry wrote in a statement that our mother lost her life because of this, referring to the interview and the treatment of the scandal. And Earl Spencer revealed that his first meeting with Bashir had happened on August 31, 1995, just 2 years before her death.
Exactly 2 years later, she died. And I do draw a line between the two events. Diana did lose trust in really key people. This is a young girl in her mid-30s who has lived this extraordinarily turbulent and difficult time in the public eye. She didn't know who to trust. And in the end, when she died 2 years later, she was without any form of real protection.
And as a result of the inquiry, the BBC and Bashir both apologised, and the BBC gave written apologies to Princes William and Harry and Prince Charles at the time, along with Earl Spencer. And they also returned all of their awards they received for the interview, including a TV BAFTA won in 1996. And Bashir said creating the fake documents was a stupid thing to do and that he regretted it, but said that they had no bearing on Diana's decision to be interviewed, but the scandal around the interview ultimately ended his career. And the former Director General of the BBC, Tim Davie, said that although the report states that Diana, Princess of Wales, was keen on the idea of an interview with the BBC, it is clear that the process for securing the interview fell far short of what audiences have a right to expect, and we're very sorry for this.
We accept the findings of the report in full, and I'm very sorry for all those that were affected by it.
And now, around 30 years after the interview, Dianarama claims that along with those fake bank statements, Martin Bashir was pathologically, compellingly charming and ruthless, who made a series of lewd and false claims about the royal family to get Diana across the line.
Diana's brother, Charles Spencer, was in the room and carefully noted down these sorts of things. 32 separate claims he noted down. They do sound truly bizarre. One of them was that Bashir alleged that a young teenage Prince William had been given, he said, a watch which contained in it a secret mechanism in order to secretly bug conversations. Crazy.
With Webb also claiming that Diana was convinced by the BBC that her husband was going to kill her, and that because of what Martin Bashir had done in 1995, and more importantly, because it had then been covered up by the BBC, Diana's life had been sent off on a terribly dangerous course, resulting in her death. And in the book, Simone Simmons, who was a close friend of Diana, says, "I hold Bashir fully responsible for Diana's death, not partly responsible, fully responsible. If it wasn't for him, she would be alive." And that's where this beef between Princess Diana and disgraced BBC reporter Martin Bashir comes to an end. But that's it for today's episode of The Beefing. If you liked this ep, let us know. And while you're there, if you could subscribe or follow wherever you're listening from, it's a really easy way you can support everything we do here at The Briefing. And you can also check us out on Instagram at The Briefing Podcast and on YouTube. I'm Helen Smith. Catch you next time.
A listener production.